Hey guys, it's Kevin from Spirited Systems, and today we're going to talk about how to keep our hands warm in cold weather. When it comes to the military person or even the outdoorsman, there's a lot of talk about taking care of their feet, but not as much mention goes into taking care of the person's hands. So today we're going to talk about how to keep our hands warm and comfortable and maintain dexterity from mild cold conditions all the way up to extreme cold weather. So my approach to keeping my hands warm is layering, kind of like you would with your torso. I want to have a range of glove options that I can adapt to different temperatures, precipitation, and activity level. You want to think of it kind of like layering your torso in that you want to keep comfortable, but not too warm to the point that you are sweating. So even in the summer, I like to have a shooting style glove. And this one is the HD range glove from Outdoor Research. Another one that is very similar to this that I also like is the suppressor glove from Outdoor Research. And these gloves are pretty thin and you have a lot of dexterity with these style of gloves. On the palm of the hand, it is leather, and then on the back of the hand, it is Nomex. So these will resist flame. And that is my preference for this style of glove. So having the leather palm will protect my hands if I take a fall or touch something sharp, to protect from those lacerations, abrasions, and some heat. I do want to say with the FR gloves that these are not protective enough to undo something like a hot suppressor. They really are just meant to resist like an open flame. So don't be trying to unscrew your suppressor with a glove like this. Another style of glove would be the non-FR pig glove, which gives you even more dexterity than something like the Outdoor Research one, but will not give you as much protection because it does not have a leather palm, and then it will melt to your skin if you do encounter some type of flame. But pig does make an FR glove as well, so that is an option. So in most cool weather cases, the shooting glove is really going to be enough to keep your hands warm. And then if you're static for a long time, you can just stick them in a jacket pocket or your pants pocket, or you can use something like this Spirited Systems muff attached to your plate carrier or on a waistband, and then you can just stick your hands in there when you're static, and then when you start moving again or whatever, you just pull your hands out. And it gives you a temporary relief from the cold if the temps do start to drop where the shooting glove is not enough for you. But what's great about the muff is that you can maintain the dexterity that you get with the shooting gloves without having to put on a thicker glove to keep your hands warm. So when the temps get too cold for just a shooting glove, I like to layer a fingerless wool glove over those shooting gloves. And what that does is that it provides a little bit more warmth on the palm and the back of my hand while still maintaining dexterity with my fingertips. So to me, that is a huge advantage over just wearing a thicker glove that covers the tips of the fingers. You can get these types of gloves at almost any outdoor store, especially the most basic kind, the rag wool gloves. You can usually find these for under $20. This specific one has texture on the palm, but they're kind of like just these little beads that are dropped on there that will rip apart after some extended use. Another glove that I like are the Outdoor Research Fairbanks gloves. So these are merino wool gloves. These are very comfortable and very soft, but the downside to these gloves is that they have no texture on the palm of the hand, so they can be a little bit slippery if you are manipulating a weapon or doing other tasks that require the palms of your hands. So after using these gloves for many years, I went on the search for other types of wool gloves that do have some kind of texture on the palms. And one pair of gloves that I found are these fish hunt monkey gloves. I'm not exactly sure how you say this.
Monkey fish frog.
But you can find these on Amazon, and what these are rag wool gloves, and then they have a synthetic palm. So it does have quite a bit of grippy texture on the palm. But one downside to this is that you then lose the flame resistance that a wool glove would have, because now you're adding synthetic materials into the mix. But if flame resistance is not that important to you, then these are an option that do give you quite a bit of grip. So another pair of gloves that I found are these gloves from Upstate Co. And these are made in the USA, which is pretty cool. And these have a deerskin leather palm. So you would retain the flame resistance, but one downside to this is that the leather on the palm makes it a little bit more bulky than not having any leather or having the synthetic leather. Another positive side to the fingerless wool gloves is that you do retain some warmth if the gloves do end up getting wet. Keep in mind you may have to go up a size if you do get a fingerless wool glove just to accommodate it going over another glove without restricting your blood flow. So now if we think of it as we now have the base layer glove, which is the shooting glove, the mid layer or active insulation layer glove, which is the fingerless wool glove, and now we can add a waterproof shell glove. There's not too many of these on the market where the insulation portion of the glove separates from the inside. Usually the waterproof shell gloves will have some type of fleece lining or tricot lining on the inside. What you really want is just the waterproof shell. And that allows you to wear it just over your bare hand, or you can wear it just over the shooting glove, or you can wear it over the fingerless wool gloves that are over the shooting gloves. So that gives you adaptability to a wider range of environments. So this specific glove is the Stone Glacier altimeter glove, and it comes with a PrimaLoft insert. This glove is very warm, but it's going to be too warm if it's just raining and it's not that cold. So having the ability to layer this shell just over the shooting glove if it's wet keeps your hands from getting too warm and sweating while still protecting them from getting wet from the rain. Another comparable glove that you can probably buy just the shell portion of it is the Outdoor Research MGS glove, and that is a surplus glove. They are getting a little bit more rare and harder to find. And with that specific glove, you will have to downsize because they are fit pretty large. And I believe another option is the Sitka Stormfront glove. Don't quote me on that specific model, but I'm pretty sure Sitka does offer a glove system where it has just the Gore-Tex waterproof shell and then a removable insulation liner. So this 3-glove system will get you through quite a few different situations, but when it does get colder, I like to replace the shooting glove with a mid-weight fleece glove. So I want this glove to be pretty form-fitting, so I don't want the thicker style of fleece gloves. There's a lot of different styles of fleece gloves on the market. Make sure you're getting something that's labeled mid-weight. With this style of glove, this one is the Outdoor Research Backstop Sensor Glove. And this has the windstopper material in this, so this will take the bite out of the cold wind that you won't get with the shooting glove. Another style would be the Stone Glacier Grapple glove, and this will give you that wind resistance as well. I'll just replace that in the system. I'll layer the fingerless wool gloves over those, and then I can mix and match these with the shell glove as the temperature and activity level dictates. So the good thing about the fleece gloves is that they retain their warmth even if they're wet. And if they do get wet, they dry out pretty quick. And since they're so light and packable, you can bring spare sets of these. But just keep in mind that you don't want to touch or interfere with anything super hot with these because they are synthetic and they will melt. With just the fleece glove and the fingerless wool glove, you can go into some pretty cold conditions and still maintain that dexterity, unlike you would with a fleece-lined glove that covers your entire fingertips. And if it does get wet outside or the wind picks up even more, you can throw them into the waterproof shell glove. Now, since we're on the topic of the waterproof shell glove, this specific one does come with the PrimaLoft liner. So, you could bring this along for those even colder conditions, or if you're just static and you're not really having to worry about manipulating weapons or anything like that. This is super light and packable, so bringing this along is not a problem. So when it becomes too cold for just the fleece glove and the fingerless wool glove, I like to use something like a mitt. And the mitt allows me to scale up from this system and then shed back down to this glove system. Instead of having to remove this glove system and put on a different glove system altogether. So the ability to scale up and then shed down is hugely beneficial for efficiency. Now, the mitt is going to keep my hand warmer and it's going to rewarm my hand far better than an insulated glove. Because the insulated glove, I have to insulate each individual finger, whereas with the mitt, I can have all 4 of my fingers in the same compartment, helping to keep each other warm. So not all mitts are created equal. Some have significantly more insulation than others. Some are waterproof while others are not. And then some pack down very small while others are pretty bulky. So you're gonna have to look and see what type of mitt will fit your requirements. So let's talk about the emergency mitts. These are mitts made from down that are meant to be extremely light and extremely packable. You want to think of them as insurance for a night out that got colder than expected. Or, you just don't have the room to pack anything bulkier. So you're going to bring these along in case it does get extremely cold. These are going to lack durability, and since they're made of down, they will not retain warmth if they do become wet. So the first example is going to be the First Light Brooks down glassing mitt. And this is from a hunting company, and these mitts weigh about 3.5 ounces, so they're extremely packable and extremely light. And another option would be the Outdoor Research Transcendent down mitts. These mitts are going to be a little bit tighter, so you would have to size up with these style of mitts, and they're just going to lack the durability, so they're not going to fit in many people's use case, especially for a tactical scenario, unless you just need the lightest thing available and you just don't have the space in your pack for anything bulkier. So another mitt that I'd like to mention is the Super Down Pro Glomitt. So it's kind of the cross between a glove and a mitt, so they call it the Glomitt. And this has a separated trigger finger. So you have your 3 fingers here, your trigger finger, and then your thumb. And this gives you the ability to actually fire your rifle while wearing the mitt. And what's cool about this is that your trigger finger can actually come out from the insulation completely, and that'll allow you to make an even more precise shot because you have more tactile feel with that trigger finger. So a pretty cool glove system here. You have DWR treated down on the back of the hand, and then you have Primaloft Gold on the palm of the hand where you would actually compress something. I get these a size larger than I normally wear, so I can fit the fleece glove with the wool fingerless glove inside of them as well. So this is not the most durable option out there, and it's not a waterproof glove, but it is extremely compressible and packable and very light option. So something to consider there is the KUIU Super Down Pro Glomitt. So keeping in line with the trigger finger mitts, we have another option, which is the Outdoor Research Firebrand trigger finger mitts, also known as the Firebrand TF mitts. You can find these on the surplus market. They're made for the military. These are a waterproof mitt. They have a Gore-Tex shell, but they are insulated. So it's not just the shell. It does have fleece and tricot lining on the inside of it. A good option if you do want that additional dexterity of having a trigger finger separated from the mitt. Just keep in mind that this is not going to keep you as warm as a traditional mitt in those extreme cold weather scenarios. Another option that is similar to this one is the KUIU North Star Glomitt. So that one is waterproof. Just like this one, it has a leather palm, but theirs actually has a little bit more of a textured leather palm, and that is insulated as well. So another option there for the trigger finger mitts. So next we're gonna get into extreme cold weather mitts. And the first example that we have is the Outdoor Research Firebrand mitts, not to be confused with the Firebrand trigger finger mitts. These ones are actually mittens. And just like the trigger finger ones, it does have a Gore-Tex shell on the outside, so they are waterproof. And then on the palm, it is made of leather. And then these are insulated on the inside. It's made of moon pile fleece. But this one also comes with an insulated insert that you can stick inside of this mitt. And then you can even wear this with the fleece glove, the wool glove, the insulated liner, and then inside of the mitt to go down to the coldest conditions. So this is the type of mitt you would use in the winter alpine environment or the Arctic environment. It'll take you well below 0 and prevent frostbite if used appropriately. So one of the main features of the Firebrand mitts is that it has a gauntlet style opening. And that's just a very wide opening that goes up onto the forearm. And it's very wide, so you can fit this over a very puffy jacket or parka. So it won't constrict the insulation that you have on your forearms of your jacket. Another feature that it has is this adjustable leash. So you can attach this to your forearm. So when you go to take the mitt off, you still retain the mitt onto your forearm while you're doing whatever task you need to do that requires dexterity. And then when it's time to rewarm your hands again, they're already just there dangling from your forearms, and you just put them on again. Another feature that they have is a cinch around the wrist. So that'll keep the warm air in and allow you to adjust the retention that you want around your wrist. So you can find these Firebrand mitts for usually under $100 or around $100 on eBay, or if you go to like a local surplus store, you can often find them there. And they are very high quality mitt that you can get for pretty cheap. And mitts comparable to these will often go around 3 times that price. So there are some downsides to this mitt. The obvious one is going to be the extreme lack of dexterity. It is really hard to do anything once you have these mitts on. It's even hard to put the opposite mitt on once you have one on already. And another downside to this mitt is that the insert doesn't attach inside very well. So when you have this insert in there, you can curl your hand and only curl the insert without curling this part of the mitt. So you don't have very good dexterity curling this way because it does separate. Now what that does allow you to do is ball up your hand inside of the mitt, but to me, you actually lose quite a bit of dexterity because of that style. So there's no way to fire a weapon once you have these very large mitts on your hands, not unless you pull your trigger guard down. So I'd like to know in the comments, how many of you have actually pulled the trigger guard to fire your weapon with mitts? And how many of you think that that's just a fantasy? So another option are the M1949 Extreme Cold Weather Mittens. And these have served the US military for many, many years. And they're still a very effective option. And they're also a very cost-effective option, as you can usually find these for around $20 sometimes. And you can find these on eBay or the surplus sites or your local surplus store. Even for the budget conscious people, there is an option out there to get into extreme cold weather conditions. So these mittens have a synthetic insulated insert that you will stick into the overmitt. The overmitt has a leather palm. On the back of the hand, it is made of wool, and that is for sticking these together and warming the sides of your face. Also, you can kind of use this as a way to wipe your nose, because if you're trying to wipe your nose with the Gore-Tex shell, which you're naturally just going to do, it's not going to feel very good. So this gives you that option. It also has a leash that you can wrap around your neck and attach to your gear. So when you shed the mitts, you will not lose them because they do have that leash. And then they have a wrist strap to tighten them down, and then a strap around the gauntlet opening as well to keep snow and other debris from getting inside of them. So the M1949, also a very good option out there. So now I want to talk about some other glove options out there. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the classic military combo of the USGI wool glove insert and the full leather shooting glove. And this has been around the US military for quite a few years, and it's not a bad option. It's really not the best, but it is a budget conscious option if your budget is limited, because you can find these at pretty much any surplus store, probably for around $10 for this whole set. And if they're charging you more, they're ripping you off. So the wool glove will retain warmth even if it's wet, and it will resist flame, which is a huge benefit for military operations. You can combine the wool glove inside of the full leather glove if it is colder. There are some benefits to having a full leather glove compared to the shooting style of glove, especially if you have to do some construction tasks or deconstruction tasks. Any type of task that requires work other than using your rifle, having a full leather glove is a pretty good option to have. A more modern version will be something like these Petzl gloves. These will give you a lot more dexterity and be pretty protective of the palm, but the back of the hand won't be as protective because it's not made of leather, but it will give you more dexterity and be more comfortable in the long run. So the next style of glove I want to talk about are the lightly insulated softshell gloves. These are kind of like ice climbing gloves in that they have a lot of dexterity and they have a leather palm to protect the palm of the hand, and on the back they are soft shell and they resist wind and a little bit of moisture. They're not waterproof, but the advantage of them not being waterproof is that they are more breathable to keep you from sweating. Now, they're not going to be as warm as the fleece and wool glove combo. They will provide more durability and protection. So this one here is the Outdoor Research Cold Shot glove, and this is a really good glove. The only downside I really find on this is that they have a seam going right across the knuckle, so it's not going to feel the greatest right off the bat. You kind of have to break this in a little bit. And then the other option that I like are the Kuiu guide gloves. So these are very similar to the cold shot gloves. They have soft shell material on the back of the hand and then a leather palm as well. And then on the inside of these gloves, on the palm, they have a tricot lining, and then on the back they have like a micro fleece liner. So pretty good option if you need some tactile feel and dexterity. These are really good for handling weapons. Just keep in mind that they can only take you so far in cold conditions before you have to change to a different style of glove. You really will start to feel the cold on the palm of the hands here where the leather is once the temps start to drop. But you could use this as your primary active glove and then stick these in something like those Outdoor Research Firebrand mitts once it starts to get colder. So it's not the first glove I would buy in the system, but it is nice to have for certain use cases, especially if you need a lot of dexterity and that protection of the leather palm while still maintaining a certain degree of warmth. So another style of gloves I want to talk about are the heavier insulated soft shell gloves. So these are kind of similar to those lightly insulated ones, but these just have more insulation inside of them, whether it's fleece or something like Primaloft. So they have a leather palm and then a soft shell material on the back of the hand. So this one here is the Outdoor Research Bitter Blaze glove, and then these are the Outdoor Research Direct Contact gloves. These will resist a little bit of moisture, but will eventually wet out in prolonged periods of precipitation. And really, these are too warm to wear in the rain. But once these do get wet, they take quite a long time to dry out. So I've really grown away from using this style of glove because I found that I've had to shed this glove far more often than I like to have the use of my fingertips. And that's really where the fleece and fingerless wool glove combo really comes into play. You know, these are an option that are out there, and they're not a bad option. And for me, they're not necessarily the best option for my style of system. So the next style of gloves we're going to talk about are the waterproof insulated gloves. Unlike the soft shell insulated gloves, these ones will actually keep your hands dry if you have to deal with wet surfaces or snow or anything like that. And where I really see these gloves kind of shining is in that mountaineering scenario where you do need to keep your hands warm and maintain some level of dexterity because you have to deal with ropes or clipping in and stuff like that. Overall, they're not going to be as adaptable to different environments as it would be to use the stackable glove system. So the first gloves we're going to talk about are the Outdoor Research Erect gloves. These have a Gore-Tex lining to them, and then the palm of the hand is like a Hypalon type material. These come with a mid-weight fleece insert. So you combine this with the outer glove, and so you have insulation on that outer glove, and then you have the fleece insert as well. So this comes as a glove system, but this is not going to keep you as warm as something like a mitt. And the next step up from those erect gloves are going to be the Outdoor Research Alti gloves. They have a very similar construction in that they are made of Gore-Tex, and then they have that Hypalon style of palm. Just these ones have more insulation in the shell glove itself. And then these ones come with a Primaloft insert, which I don't have with me today because I lost them along the way. But these are for very cold conditions. Just keep in mind, they're still not going to keep you as warm as having something like a mitt. But if you need to do a lot more work in those colder conditions, such as in that mountaineering scenario where you're really not going to shed these that much, these are a good option. Just keep in mind that if you have to do any type of small task with your fingertips, you will have to shed these. And these are pretty bulky, but if you have a winter style of trigger guard, you can manage to get your finger inside that trigger guard and use your weapon. So these are not a bad option to have to maintain some level of dexterity in those very cold environments. So a glove that I really like that I've talked about before is the Stone Glacier Altimeter glove. And I like it for the reason that it does not have any type of insulation lining on the shell. It is just the shell of the glove. All the insulation is in a liner that will separate from the shell. And that's important because it allows the glove to dry out very quickly if it does become wet. And then I can flex this glove into many different roles by just wearing the shell over the fleece glove or just wearing the shell over the shooting glove. But if I do need dexterity and a lot of warmth, I can use it with its supplied insulation insert, and I can still pull a trigger with this. I can handle ropes, I can handle other types of equipment and still maintain some level of warmth, but I have the ability to flex it into those other roles where these ones that have the insulation attached to the shell kind of limit what I can do with them. They can only be used in certain level of cold, and I can't flex them into other roles. Another thing that I like about this altimeter glove is that it has one pull cord to tighten around the forearm and then a different colored pull cord to loosen around the forearm. Some gloves like the Firebrand Mitt, I only have one pull cord to deal with a cord lock. And then if I have a mitt on the other hand, I have to try to find this cord to pull it open. So it becomes kind of inconvenient, whereas having one that tightens and one that loosens is a pretty good quality of life feature to have. So I want to talk about a few items that I generally avoid. And the first one is a big one, and that's going to be the chemical hand warmers. People use these all the time. They are effective, but they only last about 6 to 8 hours depending on which model that you get. And you can only carry so many of those. And you just can't discard those once they're used up. You have to carry them on your person or in your pack. I don't think you should rely on using those. I do think you should have at least a few of those in your pack, and really those are for the emergency scenario where you need to warm up quickly. I wouldn't carry so many of those to where it's a burden with weight, and you can't count on being resupplied with those chemical hand warmers. The next thing I want to talk about are the electronically heated gloves. Now, they are pretty effective at keeping somebody warm, but again, you're dealing with a consumable item, which is a battery, and you will eventually run out of battery power. So right now, I'm not a fan of those style of gloves. Because they do add a little bit of weight and a little bit of bulk with the battery, and you're not always going to have the ability to recharge those batteries, and then those batteries will run out, and then you've become accustomed to this certain level of warmth in your gloves, and then once that cuts out, now you're going to be cold. Again, you need to have gloves that will keep you warm in the coldest conditions you expect to encounter without the use of a consumable item. So a style of glove that I don't like are form-fitting waterproof gloves. And the reason why I don't like them is that they always make your hands sweaty because your hands are not able to breathe. So once your hands get sweaty, you run the risk of your hands getting cold. And that's the reason why I don't prefer the form-fitting waterproof style of glove. So another thing to keep in mind as well is that I think you should have multiple gloves when you're going out into these cold weather environments, and you should have backup gloves. It's very common to lose one of your gloves or even both of your gloves. You know, having a spare pair, at least of the fleece gloves, is going to be super important. Another thing is having features on your glove to retain them on your kit. So having the loop around the wrist where you can attach them to a carabiner of sorts is going to be super helpful in preventing you from losing your gloves and giving you a place to store them and not just stuffing them into your pocket. So that about wraps it up for cold weather gloves. If you want more information on cold weather layering, check out part 1 through 4 of the cold weather layering series. You can find that in the playlist of the Spirit of Systems YouTube channel. Also, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel as well, and we'll see you on the next one.